Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Legal Tech Live. I'm Nick Rishwain, your host today, and your host always. With me today is Anthony, and make sure I say this correctly. Is it Marrone or Marrone?
You got it, Marrone.
Marrone, okay. My guest today is Anthony Marrone. Anthony is the principal of the Marrone law firm with offices in Central and Northern New York. He focuses his practice on elder law, trust and estate planning and special needs planning. Anthony is also the author of, and let me get it correct, the Social Media Marketing Blueprint for Lawyers. And he's here. There it is. Look at
You got it, man.
Oh, and it comes in real clear on my end, so that's great. Yeah. And
it's a real book.
It's a real book, and he's going to share with us some tips and tricks for lawyers and tell us how the book came to be and how he is using social media marketing for the Marrone law firm. And Anthony, thank you for accepting a last-minute invite to be on the show.
Sure.
I appreciate your reaching out earlier in the week. The way we got connected was that Anthony was asking me about a blog post about the book, and I said, I don't do the written blog posts. This is basically how we do blog posts, whether it's a live video podcast or a vlog. That's how this show is done. Anthony, thanks again for being here. Tell me about yourself and how then you look, because this is big about telling the stories for those in legal tech. We do consider social media part of legal tech because so few attorneys are really taking advantage of it.
So few.
So tell me how you came to practice law and how you then moved on into the social media speaking and writing and promotion.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. This is
my pleasure.
Such a cool platform for me to be on with you guys. And, I'm a big fan of video. I do a lot of Facebook Live, so this is cool. Probably not dissimilar from a lot of you. Going through college, I didn't really think I had any other marketable skills besides speaking and arguing with people. So that delivered me to law school. And in law school, I kind of just fell into the estate planning track. And you probably couldn't pick a practice area that's further away from social media than my average client is 77 years old. So, in terms of being on the cutting edge, we're at the absolute back of the line. So practice estate planning coming right out of law school at a mid-sized firm in New York. When I signed on with the firm, and, I was always into marketing, I'd taken some marketing classes in college and knew that if you're in a consumer practice or retail type practice, that direct marketing to the client was going to be very important to the success of that practice, especially seeing some of the encroachment from the legal Zooms of the world and, kind of the online kicking off for estate planning stuff. I knew that I'd have to be aggressive to market myself to compete. So day one in my law firm, and I'm, getting my LinkedIn set up, and managing partner comes in, and I was having trouble accessing Facebook from my office. And they said, "Oh no, we don't allow any employees to go on Facebook because it's a time waster." So I practiced in that type of environment for 7 years, and struggled. Finally, by the time I left, I had convinced them to allow us to access LinkedIn at work.
Okay.
So very old school kind of white shoe type approach to the practice of law, very traditional, and it just wasn't working for me in several ways. So decided to open up my own practice early last year, and we've got a couple offices, as you mentioned now. And most of the marketing that I do, we still do some traditional marketing, obviously to target some of our senior citizens. But most of the marketing that I did when I started my practice was content creation, social media type marketing. We pushed first with Facebook just because that's where most of my clientele, if they're anywhere on social, they're going to be on Facebook. And then, we've done a bunch of different stuff following up that we could kind of go over. I built Instagram. We have, the Twitter presence, LinkedIn, obviously. We've tinkered with a little Snapchat here and there. Blog is part of that. I guess it depends on how far out you want to define social media. In the book, I talk about blogs and Avo and legal directories, but how the book came to be was I was running one day and we got these two great social media interns, but I was really struggling with figuring out how do we separate, do we just dedicate one intern to the Facebook channel and one to everything else? How do you manage that amidst legal practice as well? And I, in doing our own social media, I kind of cobbled together everything, right? I do some research online. Okay, this is how you run Facebook ads. And then I do some research online. This is how you run Instagram ads. This is how you generate the appropriate content across all the different channels. And it just all wasn't in one place.
Right.
So I decided it would be I thought a good idea, more of a tool for myself to bring all the research together in a book format so that if I could resort back to, okay, this is what worked for us from a Facebook ads perspective. These are some of the best engagements we got on Instagram, and just take it really, really platform by platform by platform. And actually, the first chapter I wrote was ethical compliance, how to comply with all the, the ABA model rules, particular states rules. There's not a ton of information on, particularly on social media ethics, but I kind of did a good amount of research to kind of pull together and synthesize what the rules were. And so when I submitted the book to the editor, they said, "Oh, this is the most boring chapter we've ever read in our whole life. Everything else, very good. We're going to put this ethics chapter at the end, like lawyers always do."
Right.
So we got moved from the first chapter to the last chapter, but
it's so also one of the most important chapters for lawyers.
I mean, to me,
when it comes with advertising and marketing and communication.
Right. To me, unless you're just doing, unless you're running everything just as a personal profile, the minute you start to do anything that could be considered attorney advertising,
yes,
any professional page or business page, you've got to be in compliance with the ethical rules. So whether it's at the beginning or the end of the book, to me, it's still the most important chapter because it sets the table for, okay, how do I deploy on Facebook, knowing what I know about how to do it on how to market on Facebook, but also within the confines of what's considered ethical, and then also probably tasteful as well, as would be the other.
Right, would be the other concern. Let me just. Okay, Ivan is here, and I'm sending you an invite, Ivan. I didn't see you pop in for a second there, so I am now sending an invite. Hopefully, you're not on mobile. It will have difficulty with mobile. Your device won't support broadcasting at the moment, Ivan. You'll have to go to a desktop or laptop. And that's exactly right. And I was looking and reading about the book, and I'm sorry for for a little bit of the confusion there. Ivan, let me know when you're on desktop in the chat, and I will re-invite you. The ethical considerations when it becomes law firm advertisement or a law market, how do you advise, just kind of generally, and realize that it changes from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and the rules are different, but generally, do you tell attorneys to have a disclaimer on every one of their legal marketing platforms, if it's Snapchat, or which is a little bit more difficult because you can't have a bio there, but say Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, do you tell them that needs to be that there should be a disclaimer or something like that on every platform?
Usually what I say is, if you're going to deploy advertising where you're reaching out to people who have not proactively connected with your page. So for example, I have a personal Facebook account, right? Most of us do.
Most of us do.
I tend not to run business related things through my personal Facebook page. I have a separate Facebook page for the Marrone Law Firm. Within the Marrone Law Firm page, I'm constantly deploying advertising to targeted demographics. So in reality, those ads have to comply with, in New York State, the New York Rules of Professional Conduct. The way that I've done it, and there's not, New York State put out this, the litigation section put out this manual about complying with social media rules. 90% of the manual dealt with not contacting jurors through social media. So nothing about, which is so super helpful.
Yeah, real helpful. But it is a valid concern because there were
early in social media,
there were a lot of mistakes by attorneys in doing such, not just jurors, but the opposing party and so forth.
Oh, and you can see it could happen very easily. But so when I read through the rules for New York, the conclusion I came to, which has not been addressed by an ethics opinion as of yet, is somewhere within my Facebook page property, I have to comply with the New York State rules for disclaiming that it's attorney advertising.
Okay.
What I've done is I've done that within the About section, the About tab of my Facebook business page. Okay. So the disclaimer's located there. On Twitter, I don't run Twitter advertising. However, it could be considered solicitation. I've seen some attorneys put a disclaimer on there, like, this is not legal advice. Mm-hmm. I've never seen anybody, and I've never advised anybody to put the attorney advertising disclaimer on the social media profile for Twitter or Instagram. But because I'm deploying advertising on Facebook, mm-hmm. I've got it nested within the About section. And I think that, that's probably a pretty conservative interpretation of the rules as they exist in my state at this point today. I mean, that may change. I can't see, the real fear I have is that a state comes out and says, anytime you're going to run an ad, the ad has to have the disclaimer built into it. Because that's just going to crush the outreach that you're trying to do, because the whole thing is, fitting within the platform marketing. And if you've got to put a whole legal disclaimer on there,
it's going to be a pretty terrible ad to read. And
it's going to be awful.
Hard to find and hard to even many Facebook ads and Twitter ads and so forth. The characters are limited. So now if I have to add a legal disclaimer, then
it'll end the advertising. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things that, as long as people that are 65 are making the rules now, it's something that's a risk, right? My generation, I start off the book by talking about when the Facebook was created. I was a sophomore in college, and we actually had to physically sign a petition to get the Facebook to come to our campus, right? So to get access to it, it had to have a .edu email address, and you had to have so many signatures on this physical paper petition. And so that just the growth in the past 14 years from that point, or 13 years from that point, is unbelievable. So, I mean, when our generation is in the position where we're running the bar associations across the country, I don't think it'll be as much an issue anymore, because it's organic to us, right? Mm-hmm. I, for lack of a better term, grew up on social. It was just called AOL Instant Messenger at the time, and I was in a chat room instead of being in a great live video like this. That's
right. Where we actually know that we're talking to a person who is essentially who they claim they are, and not some sort of a predator or something like that, which was probably a common mistake we were making as teenagers on AOL Instant Messenger and having no idea. So this is great stuff. Hey, Ivan, welcome.
What's up, guys? I finally found my AC adapter.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're here.
Trying to go in through mobile. Hey, Anthony, welcome aboard.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anthony Marrone, Ivan Rakelin. Ivan was actually the initial founder of LegalTechLIVE, and I have continued it during his service, and we're now working on setting the website up and moving all the interviews over to the website. So
good.
So Ivan, for whatever you may have missed, Anthony is practices elder law in New York and has written the book Social Media Marketing Blueprint.
I want to see that again. I actually caught most of it when I was looking at it on the mobile app. But the Social Media Marketing Blueprint for Lawyers. Excellent. Yeah. Got the Facebook thumbs up.
And
I like it too.
And we're talking about how the one of the main chapters that he wrote on the ethics and in how the publisher was like, oh, this is one of the most boring things we've read. But for attorneys, this is incredibly important, knowing how they can use this without getting in trouble, and how they can use social media without violating the rules of professional conduct.
Right, exactly.
I wanted to ask next, Anthony, what platforms are you recommending for lawyers, mostly at this point. We know that Facebook is one of those that's you got to be on it, and you should probably be using ads in conjunction with whatever engagement you're doing. But what else besides the Facebook and the LinkedIn are you telling lawyers should be a part of their blueprint?
Yeah, so it's going to be a little different for everybody, right? The classic lawyer answer, it depends. I think you have to begin with your goal in mind, okay? So the question for me initially was, I started an elder law firm, right? So you can't, the idea of finding clients on social media to me was crazy. But at the time I knew that what I wanted to do was, people knew me as a lawyer in the community because I was active in the community, but I needed to introduce them to my new business. So my goal was purely brand awareness. So, for me, what I started doing was looking at the landscape and saying, okay, in my central New York community, where is there a lot of engagement that I could do for free? And for me, initially, that was Instagram. There's tons of local businesses that all were interacting with each other on Instagram. So I just basically jumped into the fray and kind of joined that conversation. Yes, I built out a Facebook, content. Basically, we're just churning out our own content and then content curation initially, just because it was just me to start off.
Right.
And LinkedIn, I mean, I think, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, that's the first thing I'm going to do with someone, because just to connect with other lawyers or referral sources, particularly if you're in a retail type practice like mine, where I'm a B2C, type of business, and I'm dependent almost entirely on word of mouth referrals usually before I ramped up social and my web presence, then you've got to be able to connect with those other professionals on LinkedIn. So that, I'm assuming, a lot of your audience already has LinkedIn, Twitter. The book is really, the way I'm marketing the book direct to bar associations is for folks who have not even been able to make that step. Okay. So usually LinkedIn is usually the entree for them. Oh, and then from there, we're good. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's 90% of lawyers. Yeah. 90% of lawyers in America are not on social media. Yeah. So from most estimates by the ABA. So,
incredible.
It's incredible. You'd be shocked. The amount of people I talk to are like, oh, that's not for me. Or I can't be bothered with that. Or I'm glad that I'm old enough that I'm close to retiring that I don't have to worry about that. Or
It is shocking. It is shocking. Yeah. And I didn't realize the number was 90%. Yeah. It's disheartening in a way.
And some of it can be misleading, because when you go, like for the book, right, I'm deploying Facebook ads against people who identify on Facebook as an attorney. Well, not every, and then I go to some of my friends. Well, not all of my friends are using their personal Facebook profile to identify their profession. So it can be, it's probably, there's probably folks who are, a large swath of folks who might be missed. Same thing on Instagram. Twitter, people tend to be more forthcoming in their biography about their profession. But Facebook is really, the biggest player in this space. They're the number, once I get people over the LinkedIn hump to LinkedIn, Facebook is the first place that we go to, just because it's user friendly. And no matter what clientele you're serving, you're going to find a market for them on Facebook. Yeah. And so if I could help someone build a Facebook, from there we start to look at, well, if you're in legal tech, or you're servicing other business owners or entrepreneurs. A friend of mine works with just startups. You got to be on Twitter, right? So it's all about reverse engineering your goals, and then I could backfit you into where I think you need to be. You certainly, not every lawyer is going to be on every platform, right? And so I kind of rank the priority as Facebook, LinkedIn as the two number ones, and then really from there you could cherry pick an Instagram or a Twitter, Snapchat maybe. I mean, we tinker with Snapchat. I'm probably a little bit old for the Snapchat generation, but honestly, if using Instagram stories or Snapchat, I think one of those two for lawyers. Yeah. I've seen a lot of lawyers really use Instagram stories very well. There's a guy at the McKenzie law firm uses Instagram stories pretty much every day. I think he's on there more than Gary Vee. And oh wow, so there are some lawyers who are using these strategies they tend to be younger, obviously, just because we grew up with the technology. But, you know, a Snapchat could work. Twitter, if you're in a B2B type situation or you're representing entrepreneurs or other, you know, providers, is great. But I mean, quite honestly, between Facebook and LinkedIn, if I could get someone on LinkedIn, get their profile set up and get them moving in appropriate groups. So for example, I have a colleague of mine who I used to work with, and she's not sophisticated, not tech sophisticated, but I helped her set up a LinkedIn profile, and she represents nursing homes. So we got her involved in a bunch of groups related to nursing home management, where she's now responding to questions within the group and has become a thought leader in that space. Because at the end of the day, it's about content curation, right? Content creation and demonstrating that you're a thought leader for, you know, within your space. So she's been able to not necessarily need a blog or a website, but just using the LinkedIn groups to accomplish that. But everybody's situation is going to be different.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Every situation is different. Whereas in my day job, it's B2B, where we are marketing expert witnesses to lawyers.
Right.
And so we we actually have some pretty significant footprint on Twitter, and where Facebook is a little less interactive for us. And what we found in my day work is that LinkedIn, although great when you're in a LinkedIn group, and I participate in LinkedIn groups personally for individually and from the company, and it's a lot of everybody posts their content.
Right.
There's not very much interaction or engagement. And I don't know if you notice that, or for attorneys, is it mostly spam posting in the groups, or do you actually see attorneys engaging with each other on LinkedIn groups?
I think it depends on the group, and it depends on the moderator. There is a lot of really good engagement that happens in some of the state bar association groups that I'm in, or some of the, you know, like there's a group called Elder Council, which is a conglomeration of elder law attorneys, and there's really good substantive interaction on those groups. Yeah. It's just a question of, you know, obviously some of them, like I'm in networking groups for Central New York, and those are just people spamming their content. Yeah, check out this, you know, check out my network marketing site, or there's a lot of that going on. Yeah. I mean, I think directing, you know, the place that I've gotten the best direct engagement with people has been Twitter. In terms of me building out my book of business for clientele, though, there's not a doubt in my mind that Facebook has been the platform that's returned the most investments for me. I mean, just the ability to market to my, you know, basically what we do is we get a client in the door. I have someone track them down if they're on Facebook or their kids are on Facebook. We invite them to like our Facebook page. We service the heck out of them as a client, but then we're continuously marketing to them through the Facebook page. I mean, it's gotten a lot more difficult with the EdgeRank algorithm and pay to play on Facebook, but you know, with our organic marketing on Facebook, just to constantly remind them about what we do. So it's not even about, and I tell people this all the time, you've got to take a more long-term approach to social media. Yes. You can't expect that you're going to get on social media, run an ad on Facebook, and people are going to call you and hire you as their lawyer. If they do, that's great, but you need to build out your content. They need to see that you're a constant provider, and it takes that, you know, constant jabbing and jabbing over time. And when someone needs your type of law and they go to Facebook to search, because it's one of the top, you know, YouTube, Google, Facebook, these are the top places that people are searching for things online, and your page comes up and it's got content, constant content that's there, even if they haven't been served to them in their news feed. They're going to say, I've had a number of people say to me, wow, you're everywhere. Yes. You know, everywhere I've looked for an elder law attorney, you're there. And that's intentional. I mean, it's not, right. That's the goal, right? You don't, I'm not necessarily deploying a Facebook ad to get someone to call me right away to do their will necessarily. That would be great, but I'm taking a more long-term approach where I just want the content to be there so that when someone's on that platform and they're looking for elder law attorneys in New York, no one comes up besides me. I mean, that, you know, if that's your goal, and it can work really well, especially on Facebook, if you're in a B2C type practice, because if I'm a retail, there's two things. You have the constant need to turn over and acquire new clients, right? That's my number one problem. I'm a transactional lawyer. So I don't have 10 clients. I've got 450 active clients. Right. I'm constantly trying to refill that pipeline. So, for me, I can get on there and write a blog post about the difference between revocable and irrevocable trusts. I wrote that blog post once. I run it constantly as an advertisement because it's, I've identified what the top questions are that I get in my practice. So I was at the Clio Cloud conference 2 weeks ago, and Gary Vaynerchuk was the keynote speaker, and I have followed him forever. I have friends that worked at VaynerMedia. But for a lot of the lawyers in the audience, it was earth-shattering information that he was sharing. And, right. One of the things and this is like somewhat tech-savvy lawyers too, not, really not even the people who needed to hear it. But one of the things he said that really stuck with me is you've got 5, 10, 15 blog, vlog, podcasts in your head. You just haven't taken the time to commit to put them on paper or on video or on audio and build out that content. There's no doubt if you're a practicing lawyer or a practicing professional in any way, you're met with common questions consistently in your job that you can then write or vlog the answer to, put up on the beautiful thing that's called the World Wide Web. People will eventually find it if you've done a halfway decent job of with your SEO and tagging it, and that will eventually lead to business. But you can't, I get asked all the time, well, what's the ROI if I do a Facebook ad? What's my return on investment going to be? Right. And I say, honestly, initially I have no idea. Right. There's no way, I have my metrics, I know what my engagement rates are, and we track incoming leads to my law firm as well. But, there's no true way to really get to the nitty gritty of what's the ROI. It's not like if I was selling t-shirts and I could plant a pixel on my website, I could track how many people bought a t-shirt by clicking my Facebook ad, right? That's right. It's not that simple. Not that simple when you're a service provider. So we've got to be a little more creative. How much does it cost to actually gain trust? What's the ROI of building trust with somebody else? It could be nothing. Right. It could be exponentially unlimited, because then they could, based on your recommendations, they can go ahead and purchase anything from you if they have that level of trust with you. Well, there's documented cases of attorneys that have, whether it's Facebook advertising or organic posting, that have returned 6-7 figure clientele from those types of posts, whether it's a one-off type thing, or just seeing their presence. I mean, I've gained tons of clients from doing this. It's just a question of, you can't be looking for the short-term reward, because social is not going to give you that short-term reward. It takes hard work. It takes discipline, whether it's you or you've outsourced it to someone else to handle. And it just takes, once you find your voice on social and the platforms, it's just constantly, you're constantly watering that garden, just like anything else in marketing, right? Yep. So I do a lot of my. I have a question. Yeah, go ahead, Anthony. So I came in a little bit late, and I was wondering if you guys already covered essentially the overview or the outline of your book. If you could share about that a little bit more, I would be interested. And then we could. Yeah. And then you have another question. So basically, in the Q&A, Ivan, that I think is a good one. Go ahead, Anthony. He's got another question. Go ahead. Yeah. Go for it. The outline. Oh, in the Q&A. I'm just in the chat. Okay. I'll hit the question in the Q&A after. Okay. The basic outline of the book is, well, at the beginning, I wanted ethics to be the first chapter, but the editor moved it to the last chapter. So we start off with Facebook, LinkedIn, right? Those are my two primary. So essentially, the book, if you are a social media maven, the first half of the book will probably be redundant to you. Okay. Like if you are equipped on social media and up and running, you may just breeze through parts of the Facebook, the LinkedIn chapter, because I'm really taking people using screenshots, using, very basic descriptors, taking people soup to nuts. How do I start a Facebook page? How do I begin a LinkedIn profile? So it is, we've talked in my office about doing kind of a next level book, the advanced social media marketing
Right.
for lawyers or something along those lines. But the Facebook, LinkedIn, we go to Instagram, and we go to Twitter, and then we close out the substantive platforms with a discussion of Snapchat. Snapchat, not just for teenagers. So each chapter has the beginning, the introductory, piece of how do I set this up in the first place.
Let's pause real quick.
Yeah.
I wanted an ancillary question on that last chapter about the substantive platforms. So when you go into Snapchat, I wanted your thoughts on this. You may not have written about it, but I'm going to go ahead and take a look at your book probably here this week. Now that it's actually pretty intriguing. The Snapchat piece, what are your thoughts on the use of geofilters and how you would think that geofilters could be applied in order to build your legal brand on Snapchat? I don't know if you've thought about that.
Yeah.
If not,
we've done it.
Be a good
Let me
discussion
see if
here.
I've got I don't know if I've got a screenshot of our Snapchat geofilter in, if it made the cut or not. I've run Snapchat geofilters in my practice. It works. It's not in the book. It works well if, first of all, it's incredibly cost effective, I think. I mean, if I'm running an event, like if I do, so the problem is for my practice, it's hard enough to get people on Facebook, let alone Snapchat. When we're
a little bit more
participating-
advanced here, Anthony.
Yeah, no, I know. When I'm participating in a community event, right? Like I'll sponsor a run, like a local 5K, and I know that there's going to be youthful people present at the event, I will purchase a Snapchat geofilter. I mean, I purchased a Snapchat geofilter for my son's 3rd birthday party that we had at the zoo. So I love the geofilter. Yeah. I love the geofilter, and it's super cheap because you can outsource that work to like a Fiverr or something like that and get a decent product for $5, $10, $15 that you can run all day as a branding tool for another $5, $10, $15. So I love it. I haven't used it extensively outside of event-related content, event-related type things. So if I'm at a seminar and I know there's going to be younger people, or I'm at a community event and I know there's going to be younger people, I will deploy the Snapchat filter. The one thing I'm going to be doing in 15 days, actually, I'm a big Syracuse Orange fan, so from Central New York, and we're back in action here in Syracuse, the football team, in 2 weeks. So I'm going to be running a Snapchat geofilter in the stadium, for the Marrone law firm, with our phone number and a brief description of what we do, just because I know I sit next to the student section, so I know that they're constantly using Snapchat during the game. Again, for me, it's not necessarily a driver of client engagement. That's a brand awareness thing, right? I'm trying to grow my small law firm's brand in my community. And that, to me, that's important because I'm an active member of the community and I want my brand name to get out there. So we're going to be doing that again in 2 weeks. I love it. I think it just depends on your particular situation. Again, I mean, if you're in a situation where you're marketing to that younger, certainly the legal tech crowd, at the Clio Cloud Conference, to bring that up again, they had their own custom geofilter that they used for the whole conference. And, it's a fun thing that you could do, low cost, low barriers to entry, and you can really build a lot of, great customers that way. Cause people like that. It's, if I'm on Snapchat and I'm playing around and I've got a filter in a place that that I am at that time, that my friends don't have because they're not physically there, and then I could post something clever and they'll see it, that'd be great. I've just kind of moved away from Snapchat because of Instagram stories, but I still love the geofilter thing.
Yeah, I've got I want to add something to that and maybe go into the next question, but I was actually advised, now you're doing B2C where the consumers are generally probably more active on social media. In my B2B, in my day work, I was talking to somebody who's a board member of the California Young Lawyers Association, who they were having a board meeting in San Francisco, or actually there was going to be several hundred young attorneys at this. And I said, I was thinking, what do you think about experts.com doing a geo filter for Snapchat at
Great
that
idea.
location,
Yeah.
and she said, honestly, I think you'd be wasting your money because of how few young lawyers are even on Snapchat. And I thought, what? Are you kidding? They've got to be. And she said, no, I'm one of the few, and one other board member who is a friend of Ivan's and mine. And she said, she's the other one that I know, but every other one that we know is basically not on it. And I thought, wow,
Right. I think
this
between
is
Nick and
shocking.
I, we probably know at least 50% of the attorneys out there that actually use Snapchat.
that use
Actually,
social
we
media.
probably know 75% of them.
Yeah.
It's well, you know, I was gonna write a chapter on Periscope and Meerkat too, but my intern, when you got the 21-year-old interns, like, what's that? I'm like, okay, maybe we won't write those chapters. But I mean, I think, look, if you're in B2B,
Well,
it's just
good thing you didn't do Meerkat. At least you can still maybe consider in second edition.
Well, you know,
Periscope. That's still around.
I finished the draft, the last draft round of edits, and that morning, I went for a run, came back. That morning, I get on my phone, and Instagram stories came out, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me, you know? I'm just talking about, oh, Snapchat's great. It really fills the void that Instagram does and Facebook can't hit. And all of a sudden, Instagram stories comes out, and it was too late to edit the content. So I'm already kind of planning a follow-up, but
and that's one of the difficulties with writing a book about social media is that the platforms are rapidly changing. But I think what you're doing here is introductory for attorneys and incredibly important. They need, like you said, the soup to the nuts on let's start some profiles on different platforms and then start working on your content from there.
Sorry, we kind of went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to finish the outline because I think, you know,
that's a good idea.
We close out the platforms, and then I talk about using a website, blog, and legal directories like Avo. There's a chapter on giveaways, contests, and offers, which I use a lot in the B2C world to build brand loyalty. Email marketing and drip campaigns, and creating a plan. So tying it all together to create an actual schedule for how frequently you're going to post. The biggest thing in social media is becoming predictable. So if you know that your favorite brands are constantly, one of my favorite social, it's not a law firm, but the Florida Bar Association has a tremendous social media game. I mean, it's just great.
They are very impressive.
And so I know that I can get online and I'm going to see 10 Facebook posts a day from the Florida Bar Association. And if it doesn't happen, someone probably died or is ill, right? So it's you don't need to be on 10 times a day. You don't need to be posting 10 times a day, but it's developing that cadence of how frequently you're going to be posting and sticking to that and becoming, you know, we're religious about it in my office where we use software to or spreadsheet and software to kind of map out in advance the content we're going to use. But that also allows us to recycle older content. So we're not constantly needing to come up with, reinvent the wheel. So we talk about creating a plan. The last two chapters are social media advertising versus traditional advertising. So just a little bit of the nuance between that old school and the new school. And then we round it out with my favorite chapter on ethical compliance.
It sounds like you went in great depth here. And I like that you combined and even brought in the email marketing because it's still necessary and still something that attorneys need to know about. So I'm glad you covered those items in such detail. Ivan, did you want to go ask your question about who the one you asked in the Q&A?
Actually, I think let's get to that one next. But the next question that I had when you mentioned Avo, you said you dedicated a chapter to some of the platforms that are out there that attorneys can jump on and actually essentially market themselves in a freelance marketplace. Is that something that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, basically what we talked about is you need, having a website. Again, you'd be surprised how many people don't. Or having a blog, whether that's going to be standalone or not. Whether you need to be marketing yourself or want to be marketing yourself on like an Avo or a Find Law or one of those list aggregators that's out there for lawyers. And we kind of jammed a lot into this chapter, unfortunately, just because we ran out of space. We did a little bit on SEO, which is not my favorite topic in the world. It's a little too technical for me,
It
but
is technical, yeah.
yeah, you know, basically the idea that I'm trying to push with the legal directories is that Avvo, Marndale Hubble, to a lesser extent, and I hope none of these guys watch and like blast me for dumping on their platforms, but FindLaw are the new yellow pages, right? So that the classic, you know, I'm going to put my ad in the yellow pages, and people are going to open the book and like call me because I got an awesome yellow pages ad. These directories have supplanted the yellow. You can't even. I don't think they print the yellow pages anymore. I don't remember the last time I've seen one. I mean, they probably still exist.
They do.
Yeah,
They do.
So Nick just looked back. Do I have one?
I don't think I have
over there.
one here, but I actually turn the poor guy away when he comes to the office and tries to offer them to us. I'm like, man, we don't use it, and we're an online company. We use online. So you know, it's one of those things. But I thought I might even have one just lying around here for days.
Yeah, so that, you know, the Avvo, I do a lot. I advertise through Avvo for my personal firm, for my law firm, and we've had a tremendous set of results through that company. I know that they're in hot water in some states for some of their some of the tools that they're deploying about retaining a lawyer directly through Avvo. I don't use any of those services, but I do use the promoted listing services, just like you would if you were using, you know, if you're doing CPC advertising through Google or doing Google Ads or Google AdWords. You know, I don't see it being any different. I want to meet people where they're searching for lawyers.
Yeah.
So I mean,
so it sounds like you still advise attorneys to use a full marketing strategy. It's not only social media, but social media needs to be a big chunk of what you're doing these days. So
yeah, I think, you know, you got to. What I try to do is you got to, with a lot of these folks, you got to crawl, and then you can walk, and then you can run. Right. If I go in and say, you've got to do Twitter, you got to do Avvo, you got to do Google, you got to do it, they'll be like, oh, okay, bye. Either that or they're going to say, yeah, that all sounds good. We'll just you know, will you just do that for us? Which is another thing that we're setting up, you know, the infrastructure to kind of outsource it, manage it for lawyers and law firms. But, you know, it's not really, my idea was, you know, I'm going to write this manual. I can hand it off to a lawyer and say, you know, email me if you've got questions, but it's got everything in there that you need to get yourself started. Because I think outsourcing it to a marketer is fine, but if you don't, I mean, you guys know, as a practicing lawyer, we speak the same lingo, we speak the same jargon. You outsource it to a marketer, they don't know the nuances. I've seen just awful copy from firms that use marketing, just a pure marketing firm.
Right, because they're not using the proper terms of art. They could be getting into ethical violations.
Yeah, and they can't.
Actually, right.
Like I know how, because I'm living it. I know how to synthesize the information that I'm getting asked every day and break that down, whether I'm dictating it or typing it myself. Break it down into easily understandable chunks. If you haven't lived through that and you don't have the background, I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's just I've seen it go horribly wrong, because everybody's a social media expert, right? That's right. You know, it's like it's the new real estate agent. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's online. Everybody's got the solution. But I mean,
and they're all gurus. They're all
everybody's a guru.
Yeah, and it's like, well, wait a second. And I like that you even mention it on your website about the book. You say, you know, an attorney should not outsource their social media marketing immediately, not until they understand the tools. And I would even go as far as, because in my work life, we have not outsourced the social media marketing because the marketing agencies don't understand what we do, because it's part of it's law related. We are, you know, we're dealing with lawyers on a daily basis. We're dealing with experts, and you just can't outsource some of this stuff. Some of it needs to come from the attorney, and the attorney then needs to know what's happening on all their social media channels. Well, if you're outsourcing it, you give it away and you don't look back. That makes it very difficult for you to really pay attention to what's going on and what's working as well.
Yeah, because you might see $1 return by outsourcing it,
Right.
but you're exposing yourself to an incredible amount of risk.
Mhm.
And it's also not your voice. I mean, the thing is, people ask all the time, well, will you manage my social media? And I'm, it's getting to the point where you can only say no so many times before we're just gonna have to do it. But
Right.
everybody's got it. My voice in the way that I do my messaging is unique to me. And I think that that's something that's, it's easy for Pepsi to outsource because they're a huge conglomerate. There's no person there, right?
Mhm.
But if I'm the law office of Steve Williams, that copy should be how in the voice of how Steve Williams interacts with his clients on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So my idea was I'll give you the tools, I'll teach you how to fish, rather than just give you the fish. But it does look more and more like we're going to be starting a social media agency for lawyers.
Yeah.
So that actually leads into the next question that I
goal,
wrote on there. What do you think are the trends in terms of what attorneys use social media from your perspective? Is it IP? Folks in the startup obviously are going to be the ones most involved, but are there any outliers in terms of different practice group, where you can label attorneys from different practice groups that are starting to go over to use social media?
I mean, I see it a lot in DWI, personal injury. So, from what I pay attention to, obviously social, Twitter particularly is crammed with the tech lawyers, right? So IP, venture capital, folks in legal tech, very active on Twitter. But what you're missing on Twitter is a broad group of general practitioners, corporate attorneys in big law and small law, and folks that are doing your PIs, your med malpractice, DWIs. So I see, one of the more popular ones, and if you haven't seen the videos, I highly recommend you go to YouTube and watch the videos. A guy I met a couple weeks ago, the Texas Law Hawk.
Yeah. He's got great videos.
He's actually a pretty, really good guy. So you're starting to see he's a criminal lawyer in Texas. So starting to see more and more those folks who are serving, if I'm serving a clientele that exists heavily on social, like DWI, real estate, because everybody who's buying a house is on social media talking about their house that they're going to buy or sell. Personal injury is a big one because, folks that are out of work and are at home, traditionally marketing has been through TV to those people, cramming television ads. But now more people are on their mobile device than anything else at all times. I mean, when was the last time that this device was more than 4 feet away from you?
Rare.
And did you have a panic attack if that happened?
Yes.
Right? So,
that's right.
As long as people are using the mobile, I think social media, especially in a personal, if I'm a personal injury lawyer right now, the way that you can geographically target your advertising, I'd be running advertising all day around every hospital in my city.
Yeah.
I'd have my standard ads and they would constantly deploy right around you could draw the little circle on Facebook if you're using the Power Editor feature. Draw the little circle around each hospital and that ambulance chasing is, you got to do that somehow.
Nice.
That's right.
If you're not going to the scene of the accident, then certainly doing the geographic targeting is
hit them as they
do it.
recover, because maybe at the scene of the accident they may not be lucid enough to be able to.
Well, yeah, and you're gonna, you can do it.
That is a brilliant point.
You go to the hospital, you go to the orthopedic office, where they have these big, like bone and muscle centers, and you just you're just running constant ads. You're not spending a lot of money because you have a very defined geographic focus, and you're just constantly running whatever $10-15 a day in ads deployed against those locations. That's just one example off the top of my head, but tons of options.
I think you're right as far as the trends go. From what I see on a day-to-day basis, I see PI, criminal defense, DUI, and workers' comp really embracing social media so far. As you mentioned, on Twitter, where we have gotten probably almost all of our guests on the show, it's all come through Twitter, where you have law and legal tech related people who are pretty active in using that to even curate their own stuff. So it's right now I think it's limited. You don't see a lot of insurance attorneys or business and commercial litigation really attacking social media, at least not from my day-to-day engagement on it.
No, I mean they're doing it. If you're in big law, I think the one thing to be doing is generating blog content. You know, if I'm in a firm with 500 lawyers, most of those associates are sitting around doing doc review every day, right? Mm-hmm. So start having them generate blog content that you can run through your, you know, for the big law firms, they're using their LinkedIn page traditionally in their own traditional marketing channels. But there's no reason you can't be just absolutely cranking out the content on a blog or on a big website, especially because the more lawyers you have, the more events they're going to be participating in. You know, that's right. They're in the community, they're doing speaking engagements, continuing legal education engagements, and I really think that would be the way to go for them. I see Ivan's question about LawLine.
Yeah,
is that on? God, you gotta give me a brief. Is that the online CLE?
Yeah, it's the online CLE. Actually, I got a lifetime subscription when it first came out. I think the first year I use it sometimes to complete my CLEs because I'm always traveling globally, so it's difficult to actually physically attend one of those. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts, and as well as Nick on LawLine, and if it's a platform that attorneys need to focus their attention on to build out their expertise online, or is it at this point a waste of time with all the, you know, with social media out there, especially Facebook targeted ads that can really get to who you want to get to?
I do less now than I used to, but I used to do a lot of these Lorman NBI webinars. I'm actually giving one on Wednesday. What I found is that, you know, running through a platform, any one platform where you don't control the content or the user experience, to me is going to be less important than a place like Facebook where I could run my own whatever I want to say. You know, if I'm building out a funnel to kind of get people in, or I've got a lead magnet where I'm trying to, you know, give away something of value, I find that using Facebook or any other platform is much better for doing that. It just kind of depends on how you're trying to position yourself. Because for me, the best thing to build up my reputation and get referrals from other lawyers was, to be honest, speaking at live events. So, you know, going locally and just kind of riding the CLE speaker circuit locally was really helpful for me when I started out to demonstrate my commitment and level of competency. Now I do it less and less just because it's not been a great way to drive up revenue, to be honest. Okay. So when I look at, I'd much rather, like next Tuesday, I'm giving 2 seminars up north on the St. Lawrence River to elderly people, and we use a traditional newspaper advertisement. Okay. And direct mail to draw people in. What is that? No, I don't even get the newspaper.
What is that?
I had to have them mail me a copy of it to make sure it ran. Can you cut it out and mail it to me? Because it's not on the internet. So, you know, it just kind of depends on how you want to position yourself. I'm sensitive to you know, being all digital. I'd love to be all digital, but you know, even in our practice, we're going more and more cloud-based, digital-based, but it's still tough when you service a clientele that's 80, and if you ask them if you have an email, they give you a look like you're from another planet. So,
the infamous octogenarian, huh?
Yeah, it actually brings up a question for me, because it was something I had experience as a public guardian before I went into legal tech. And that surprised me a little bit that you are still targeting the octogenarian. And I would think that more and more your social would help bring in the son or daughter of that octogenarian, and that might be helpful for your practice. Have you noticed any of that, the younger generation then bringing their family member into your office?
for me, the number one, when we talk about how we're generating content on Facebook, I always tell people my ideal client is, my ideal, target for Facebook is a woman who's 45 to 54.
Okay.
So almost all of our social is generated based on that clientele and that profile. The reason is, there's a couple of reasons. First, it's much more likely that the female in the family is providing care or assisting the parents than the son.
Mm-hmm.
So if you only have boys like me, you're screwed.
Right.
You might need to bleep that out. I don't know if you guys deal
No,
swearing or not.
it's fine.
And then the other thing is that it's the so-called sandwich generation. So they're dealing with their own kids who might be in their teens or college years, still living at home potentially, but also dealing with aging parents. So I kind of see it as a twofer. I'm going to get the parents ultimately because the daughter's going to drag them in. And then when the daughter's there, and once we put their parents through the program, they're going to say, wait a minute, I should do this for myself and bring my husband in.
Mm-hmm.
So that, to me, almost all of our social is deployed against women. When I run Facebook ads, I rarely target men. I mean, I might never target a man in a particular demographic. I have a young, so we have that clientele, and I also do a lot of planning for young parents. I'm a young parent, so a lot of my friends are going through the same stuff, and it's the same kind of thing. We're deploying Facebook ads against women who are 25 to 45, and totally to the exclusion of men, unfortunately. But I've just found that from an ROI perspective, just limiting the demographic to women and writing the content to be relatable by women has been a better way to approach it for us personally. Right. I mean, if I'm a DWI lawyer, I probably have totally opposite feelings on that.
Sure. Interesting, and that's good perspective because you're in a growing area as we have aging baby boomers, but
right.
Generally the ones who are going to be on social will then be their children.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I'm also to be fair, I'm 33 years old, so I'm playing the game that, well, yeah, it's their kids now, but eventually those folks who are 50 now and are going to be 80 at some point, I'll still be maybe practicing law, and they'll still be on social. And that goes back to what I said at the beginning about meeting them where they are and just being present where they're congregating. For me, that's been Facebook, and so that's why we've deployed a lot against Facebook.
Excellent. Well, we have gone longer than we normally do, but that's because you are really providing some great content here for what we have recognized, and as you have recognized, a very serious lack of activity from lawyers on social media or in tech as a whole. So yeah. I really appreciate it, Anthony. We want you tell us when the book, because on your website it says to pre-order. Yep. So the book is not really fully launched.
I've got advanced copies.
Okay.
The way that the good folks at Amazon.com do it is because that's the #1 bookseller right now.
Okay.
The book's actually going to ship on October 20th. So if you've ordered it from my website, I have a couple hundred advanced copies. So if you go through anthonymarrone.com/book, then you'll let me just double check that link though. It might be the book.
I'm gonna go ahead and put
the-book.
The-book. I should know that. You can, or through any of my Facebook profiles, you can pre-order and I'll ship it to you now. Or you could go through Amazon, pre-order, and it'll ship October 20th, I believe. October 20th.
Electronically or only via paper right now?
Nope, it's also going to be available electronically. They're formatting, apparently the book world has also not caught up with the 21st century either. They're formatting it right now, and I think it'll be available at the same time. So hopefully on October 20th, you'll be able to purchase the book, and they're going to ship on the 20th, or go through a Kindle and download it.
Excellent.
For any of your viewers, if they want to email
listening to it on October 20th, then.
No, eventually I'd like to do an audiobook, but the one thing is, even on a Kindle, the issue is the reason that I was so adamant about doing it in a paper cup, a physical book, is because I've got screenshots throughout of this is how you do it. This is the screen where you go to do it. So I've got
that makes sense.
So some of that may be lost on the Kindle experience. I do a lot on Kindle, but it's going to be available wherever books are sold in any format books are sold.
Excellent.
At an Amazon and Barnes and Noble near you. No, so Anthony,
right.
this is excellent. So I just wanted to echo what I wrote in the comments at the last end there. Great episode. I have to actually say that this has been probably my favorite thus far that we've done. And because I myself am very interested in social media as an attorney. So you're always welcome back. And I can't wait to actually read your book when it comes out on October 10th. I really appreciate you coming on, Anthony.
Yeah, excellent. It's an excellent episode. And as soon as I have the YouTube link done, I will shoot that over to you. Hopefully 5 to 7 days, depending on what else I have going on here. I have put the link to your book in the chat here for anybody who watches the replay here. The link to the book is at the bottom from your website, also the Amazon link as well. Please tell our listeners where and how they find you should they want to reach out.
My God, if you can't find me, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat at Marrone Elder Law, which I'll type in the comments. And you can find me on Facebook, either at facebook.com/Anthony A. Marrone,
Okay.
or if you're looking for my law firm, it's going to be facebook.com/Marrone Elder Law, which I'm typing in the website. You can email me, Anthony@themarronelawfirm.com. What did I miss? Did I forget anything?
I think you got them all.
Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, Google Plus. Oh wait, no one uses
Send me a
that.
Snapchat. Yeah, we got to get more lawyers on Snapchat.
We do need to get more lawyers on Snapchat, and we'll make sure to connect with Anthony over on Snapchat. The Snapchat name is generally a little different than others. Is yours Anthony A. Marrone, or?
No, I think mine is Marrone Elder Law.
Marrone Elder Law. Okay, not everybody has the exact same one on Snapchat. So
yeah, it's Marrone Elder Law.
Excellent. And you can get him at anthonymarrone.com. That might be easiest, or Marrone Elder Law on Twitter is where I got him. And thank you, Anthony, for sharing. I have actually snapped the picture of the three of us here talking. I just
snapped it.
Did you? You just snapped it. Okay. I didn't actually get audio of us talking. Thank you, Anthony. I am going to do audio of us talking in just a second as we wrap up. And then you don't have to disappear right away. We'll just call this the end of the show. Thank you, Anthony Marrone, for being here. We really appreciate it. Currently snapping the social media marketing blueprint for lawyers. And with that, this is thank you for replay viewers, active viewers, for watching Legal Tech Live today. I'm Nick Rishwain here with my co-host
Ivan Rakelin at your service,
and our guest. I think, let's see, how do we do it? Our guest, Anthony Marrone. Thank you, Anthony, very much for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Please, everybody, follow us at LegalTech Live on Twitter, and the website is coming soon.